Let's also talk about unusable policies. We've, of course, got the Channel migrant policy, the Rwanda bill. My God, the R word. It's just my whole team will go, oh, God, Rwanda's in the news again. And again, I want the Channel migrant issue dealt with. I think it's a much more significant issue than many MPs seem to think it is in terms of the impact, not just on people on the Kent coast, but on millions of people around the country who've had these Channel migrants just basically shipped in, put in a hotel, put in a hostel at the end of their road. We've had a massive impact from that. I think there is a massive national security issue, and there's a simple issue of the fact that we're supposed to be controlling who arrives in our country. And I think it's quite bizarre that we are allowing tens and thousands of military-age men, and they're virtually entirely men, to come from abroad. We don't know who they are. We don't know what their history is, to stay in this country. I think it's absolutely bizarre that anyone does not think that is a crisis that needs to be dealt with. Now, we've got the Rwanda bill, the Family Safety Bill. We're told sometime in July we're going to see the first flights. No one on the left or the right thinks that these flights are going to make a damn bit of difference to Channel migrant numbers coming across. But it was interesting yesterday, very tragic yesterday, that we saw a boat leaving the French shores, where we saw it partly capsized. It ran aground on a sandbank, massively overcrowded. A number of people who crowded onto the boat were not supposed to be on that boat. It was already overcrowded. These boats are always horribly overpopulated. 112 migrants on one boat. I mean, these boats are meant for sort of, 20 people. It's quite obscene. It meant that we saw 5 people die, including a young girl. Absolutely appalling circumstances. But it's now emerged that the French authorities were watching this boat being overcrowded. They watched this boat leave. They did not stop it. And this is just the latest accusation against the French for even their Coast Guard basically escorting boats into the Channel, escorting them to British boats, and then we have to rescue them, and simply not doing the job of keeping people safe and keeping us safe from those migrants who would get on those boats.
It is awful, but you can understand why, for the French, actually there is a lot of benefit to letting these people go and becoming our problem, because then there are fewer people and it doesn't cost them so much money to have to house and look after these people. That's the long and short of it. And ultimately, if we were in their position, I suspect a lot of British police would behave in a similar fashion in terms of not wanting to cause harm, just wanting them to be somebody else's problem. And this is the issue. If you don't have a proper deterrent, they are going to keep coming. And it doesn't matter. Even if you pay the French lots and lots of money, they are going to...
Which we already do. We pay them...
Well, this is the point. Why are we bothering to pay so much money when that money could be going towards an actual deterrent and an actual processing system in this country, which is, everybody knows, has to happen if the numbers are going to keep on coming at the rate.
So you're in favour of not actually physically preventing people from getting in the boats and coming across the Channel, but once you get here, the message will... your life here is going to not be the life that you wanted it to be, and the message goes back to the people smuggling.
It's quite...
not to people paying the people smuggling.
It's quite straightforward.
What happens to them?
It's quite straightforward.
Under the Benedict Spence...
We build detention centres. We build the detention centres, and the government also procures, planes, not tries to do this through a third-party carrier or something else. It buys its own commercial planes. It buys them, and when you've got enough people who have been rejected per each country, the plane takes off. And this is the thing, when you look at some of these people...
Those countries won't accept those people.
The Indian government has absolutely no legal recourse to deny access to its own citizens. Most countries do not. We have a very few small countries, like Libya
we've had to have back rapists and murderers.
Well, we have to take them. Most countries, what are they going to do? Albania isn't going to shoot its own its own people out of the sky. Can you imagine the outcry? Jamaica isn't going to do that. Most of these countries aren't. There are a few that will be, very difficult to deal with. Afghanistan being one, Iraq being another. But even Iran...
I don't know if we can ship people back to Afghanistan given the government there.
Even Iran... Well, that's a difficult one. But that's the point. There are a few difficult cases.
Well, everyone claims to be from Afghanistan.
Well, that's very easily disprovable. And actually, if you've thrown your papers away, then it's one of those where we're kind of going to go, well, OK, but we are going to deport you somewhere, in which case maybe something like Rwanda works. Okay. But Rwanda only works in that context if everybody else is being sent back to their own countries.
Here's the thing. We can't build enough prisons. We can't build enough nuclear power stations. We don't build anything. We don't build enough houses for our own people in this country. You think the government's going to be able to push through planning permission and actually find the people to build detention centres? Do you think the human rights lawyers are not going to be up in arms about that, stopping that?
Well, this is under my administration, where we will find routes through this, but we haven't got to that stage yet. But this is why I say you get the government.
I think I'd vote for a Benedict Spence government.
You get the country you deserve if you allow your government to indulge this sort of nonsense. If you don't take a very firm approach and be prepared to be called nasty every now and then, yes, you'll be walked over by people, and that's what's happening now.
Do you know what? I've always thought one of the biggest problems we have is the affliction of many politicians and others like this need to be thought to be nice. I mean, actually, why not just do the right thing? Do the thing that you think is the right thing for the country, and history will maybe, you know. I mean, this is why, you know, we've got people who don't stand up to whether it's lockdown or trans ideology, all these things. Is actually people just. But I want everyone to think I'm a nice person, and maybe you just want that in years to come people will know that you did the right thing.
I think it's a peculiarly British affliction, actually, I have to say. We have this idea that we're all sort of very stalwart. Actually, no, I think we bend over backwards to be polite and to not want to bother and cause confrontation. Actually, I think
really, I completely missed that character trait.
No, I think that's where a lot of modern Brits actually are far more concerned with just not having any form of confrontation.
Be kind.
I mean,
always the nastiest people.
Why else do we currently have a massive crime spree in this country? Nobody talks. When people on the tube, they're playing loud music. When people are drunk in the street, nobody approaches low-level crime.
You know the
Benedict
Spence administration for dealing with the Channel Migrants, the Julia Hartley-Brewer administration for dealing with people playing loud music on the tube.
Well, you'd bust in the French police, wouldn't you?
Snipers. Sorry, snipers. It's not to kill. I'm not a nutter. No. Just flesh wounds.
Shoot to men. Shoot to men.
Just flesh wounds. I'm just saying. But the key thing is there'd be no warning.
Paintball.
It could happen at any time. You might be. People might watch you. You might be. They've notified you. You're on the escalator. It could be. It could be on buses. Could be on trains. Anywhere at all. You're playing loud music, and if someone has asked you, then you're allowed to shoot because. I know, genuinely, but I swear to you, you could get this policy through with public support. People would support this.
But it is that weird thing, though, where it will be, and it is always a young man doing it, and absolutely nobody will. You'll get the occasional look, and people glower. Nobody will say anything.
Oh, well, I do.
You do, because you're a bit unusual.
And then you get shouted at, and then I'm like, well, let's play.
Because most people want to avoid confrontation. I don't think
you know what?
Used to be,
if everyone on a bus or on a train went, no, mate, turn it down. It's too loud. It's rude. No one wants it. Also, by the way, they always play the worst music.
But do you also know what part of that is? Nobody else wants to then be prosecuted by the police if a fight breaks out, because they will go after the easier option, which is this person might even have a conviction or two. They might be known to the police, but you are the easy person to go after.
Yeah, they don't. That's the thing people don't know. But anyway, I'm just saying, you know, under my regime, vote Julia Hartley-Brewer, there will be no people playing their music. Trying to explain the concept of the iPod to people who are aged 18 about the whole point of it is it's just for you. It's not for. I don't have to listen to your music. That's literally the point of their headphones. Now they don't even bother using headphones. Now they just put their phone on and play their music.
Well,
and then but genuinely, I've said to people, would you mind not doing that? Very polite. Would you mind not doing that, please? And they look at you like no one has ever
told them not to.
Ever told them no before.
Yeah.
Mum, dad, teachers. No, imagine being a teacher dealing with those kids.
You see, the Benedict Spence administration
we did the whole show
wouldn't need to expend money on ammunition for those people because we'd do it a lot cheaper with just introducing the cane at school. You know, that's how you'd do it, actually, by disciplining people.
You've got to bring back corporal punishment.
Absolutely. Little sticks. You know, rewild Britain, build more trees, build more canes. I'm sure
I'm really worried that we could actually start a political party and we could just completely take over this election. Let's do it. Let's do it.
The insurgents to the right of reform. That's the narrative.
I see this is the thing people say. I don't think basic discipline and basic civilised behaviour in public is a remotely right-wing thing.
I do. I want to claim it back for the right. We're the civilised people. Absolutely.
Again, and as on all my shows, don't get me started on the bins. Don't get me started on people leaving their bins out. But anyway, should we talk about something else? The time is almost up. I don't know how we went off on that.
Let's pick a topic and let's apply it to our government.
It's my favourite part of the show. This is the stuff that people care about. Don't worry about border safety, border security.
No.
Let's worry about people going on the bus or on the train. Let's also just talk, just finally, in a much more serious issue, I do want to talk about is Nottingham victims. We saw a horrific attack in 2023 in June, where the horrific stabbings of Barnaby Webber and Grace O'Malley Kumar, two friends who were students at Nottingham University. And of course, another 65-year-old school caretaker, Ian Coates, also died in that horrific attack. A paranoid schizophrenic has been found guilty of their killings, but is now emerged from the family of one of the victims, Grace's parents, that a police officer wrote a WhatsApp to his colleagues at the time, which he says was basically as bad. He said, the message is as barbaric as the crime for me, he says. And the message, I'll read it out. The message said, so 2 students on Ilkeston Road have been proper butchered. 4 section, meaning referring to police officers, turned up and tried to hold their inners in, meaning they felt sick. Suspects then made off and attacked a man in a car on Magdala Road and stabbed him to death. Now, this message was then shared by another police officer outside of the police WhatsApp group with his wife and 2 friends, which is totally inappropriate, obviously. The family are saying they're horrified by this. They're saying these are horrific, barbaric messages. We've seen messages before from police where they've taken pictures of victims and shared them. People laughing, police officers laughing and joking about women being raped or wanting to rape colleagues, things like that. All of that, absolutely beyond the pale, unacceptable, out of your, you've got no business being a police officer. This strikes me as a police officer who has come across a horrific incident. He's used perhaps, unofficial style language, but he's not been disrespectful to the victims. I don't know why. I think it's quite wrong. And as much as I've sent sympathy for the families that lost their children in this way, I think it's quite wrong for them to claim this is as bad as the attack.
I mean, you and I, we criticise the police on this show rather a lot, often justifiably, because there is a lot wrong with the police. But one of our criticisms is actually that the police can obfuscate around the truth. They don't call a spade when actually it needs to be said. So I'm not going to in any way denigrate or criticise a police officer for using blunt language in a high trauma, high stress situation to relay information. This is what you want from a police officer. Maybe we'd all love everybody to have an English degree and be able to be very verbally dexterous, but that is not, in fact, the job of a police officer when communicating with their colleagues. X has happened, Y has happened, and Z has happened. That's what this is. I understand the family's grief, but it's not offensive.
Butchered, and again, he wasn't mocking or laughing. It was perhaps an unfortunate turn of phrase, but yeah, I do think that everyone, and also words are never as bad as physical violence. I'm sorry, they're not, and that's where we got into this madness. But I mean, condolences to the family. Horrific to see anything like this. But again, I think also you've got to have more understanding of what police, what ambulance staff, what soldiers, what medics see, what they see in daily life, and how they cope with that, because most of us couldn't cope with it.
Oh, absolutely. This isn't even humour. This is just, explaining. But we have to give them some slack for a very difficult job.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more.